Welcome to the Beyond Divorce Embracing Change podcast. My name is Michael Flores, and I will be your host while we explore the complex journey of divorce with empathy, insight, and practical knowledge. Whether you're contemplating separation, in a divorce, or looking for support post-divorce, our episodes provide expert guidance, stories, and strategies to help you through every step of the process. We are actual therapists, helping clients who sit on our couches every day through their difficulties of divorce. You are not alone. Join us as we delve in and find solutions that give you hope again. We're glad you're here.
This podcast is not intended to replace legal or personal help. This podcast is for informational purposes only.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm back here with Armando, and Armando and I were talking, we're talking as a group, Armando, and we discussed some different topics that we think would be helpful for people in divorce, and it's so often does it come up, anxiety.
Yes.
The word anxiety comes up. I have some of my kiddos using the word angst now instead of anxiety, which I like better.
So you've taught them the difference.
Yes. We have anxiety, the state, right? We have anxiety, the psychological issue of anxiety, like what it's like to be psychologically anxious versus just experiencing a moment of angst.
And I think that's the reason why I wanted to talk about this specifically is that it's one of those words that we hear everywhere, whether you're on TikTok, you hear it on music, you hear it everywhere, right? Like it's just everywhere, but there's a misnomer of what it actually is. Like, what does that mean? Right. I think I think anxiety gets a bad rap too, because it's also a good emotion if you know how to if you're aware of it beforehand. So I am kind of not super against anxiety when people come in.
So now I'm wondering, and I don't remember the movie very well, but I guess that the Disney movie with the emotions, was anxiety considered a good thing or a bad thing in that movie?
Well, but I think that's the thing about that movie is that emotions aren't good or bad. They just are. It's who's in control and which that movie is a good depictor of what an anxiety attack actually looks like. So for listeners, if you ever are curious about what that might actually look like, that's a good illustration of what that is, which I think that kind of helps dive into what anxiety actually is. Anxiety is an issue where you do have a sense of nervousness or fear, and it kind of lives in the future. It's like the worry of what's going to happen. Anxiety does typically have some sort of physical piece to it. So your heart will race. You'll feel like there's an elephant on your chest. You'll get a stomach ache. And so it just looks different. And we'll talk about that a little bit later about how it looks on kids. But that's anxiety specifically, right?
So exactly. So when people are kind of wondering the difference between angst or anxiety will have physical components to it.
Yes. Anxiety will have physical components. And then you run into an anxiety disorder when it starts becoming those physical symptoms. The way you're thinking starts impacting your, what I call the live, laugh, love section.
I always thought anxiety was how you think what you think about.
It can be.
Yeah, like if I go back to the original place of how anxiety starts to build in someone, it's how you think about what you are thinking about.
Well, it's also about what's going to happen specifically, right? So in session when we talk about anxiety, I always talk about how anxiety helped us survive, right? Because if we're out in the bush and we see a snake jump out of a bush, we're like, and we jump back, right? So next time you're walking by and you see that bush, what goes to your head?
There's a snake in there.
There's a snake in there. So are you extra careful? Right? Your pupils dilate, your heart, you get ready, right? That's a physical response to that. Now, if I see every bush and I think there's a snake in every bush, is that helping me? Is that serving me? Or is that now we have an anxiety issue?
Got it.
So that's how I think about anxiety. And also think about anxiety. There was a book I read, it was a while ago. I can't remember the author, but she was a sports psychologist. I think it's called Good Anxiety, I think is the name of the book.
Oh, okay.
And it talks about how, and she was a sports psychologist. So she talked about how anxiety really did help athletes, at the beginning. There's a fine line in terms of, you're a little bit anxious. It puts you at your peak. But if you have too much anxiety in a game, what happens?
Oh, yeah, you're going to lose track. You feel like you're losing control.
they choke.
Yeah, they choke. You're not clear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that too much anxiety, it's a fine line in terms of what it is. So anxiety gets a bad rap. It's not always bad, but it definitely can be.
So maybe then, are we teaching like clients to get rid of anxiety or learn to balance?
I think it's teaching what is actually anxiety and what's angst.
Let's do it.
So then angst is, what would you describe angst as, Michael?
Angst is momentarily, like, like if you have okay, my son, he's got a performance, he's got to sing on stage. So right now, as he's thinking about the performance coming up, he's a little nervous about it, right? Mm-hmm. To me, angst almost kind of goes with the idea of nervousness.
It does. It's a more of an existential kind of like, oh, what is this going to look like? How is this going to impact me? What does that say about me? Am I going to mess up? Am I going to be good enough?
Yeah, right. But I like what you said there. It's like that momentary, like it's going to pass.
Yes.
And like there's something in you that knows it will be done. Like once I do it, it's done. That's angst.
Mm-hmm.
Does anxiety have that same flavor where you feel like it's going to be done? It's going to have a final closure.
So that's where it doesn't, right? Like that's the changing of the thinking of the future of like, well, what if this goes wrong? Is it ever going to change? This is always how it's going to be. You're always fearful of the future and of that specific thing. Angst is it's more common. It's more of your kind of, we hear like angsty teenager. I was an angsty teenager. Sorry, listeners. Shout out to my parents for dealing with the angsty teenager. That was me. Right? Like, what am I going to be? What is that going to look like? How does that, that.
What career? What college? What fun?
Right.
Am I dating the right girl?
What are we doing? Yeah, actually. So usually angst is more of an uncomfortable feeling. Anxiety is that heightened level of fear, nervousness, and it changes the way you think about the future.
Wow. That was the full load right there. When you said it changes the way you think about the future.
Mm-hmm.
Like it has a full on, like I've seen that, Armando. I think when a person's in a state of anxiety, it changes really how they see a lot of things. And that's where, like you said, it gets a bad rap, but that's where I feel like it almost becomes dysfunctional.
Right. And that's where you have an anxiety disorder, is where it makes your life dysfunctional, where you cannot function
because of
the anxiety. It's not a momentary like, oh, I'm nervous because I'm on a podcast and,
like I have angst. We have a new episode.
I have angst. There's a new episode. I haven't slept, which is not true, but that would cause angst. Right. But if every time we did the podcast, every time my heart was racing,
yep,
I was cracking in my voice there, I'm crying on screen, like that's an anxiety issue.
That's you cry on screen. It's not very good.
No, I don't have it. Right.
So then I guess the question then would be, Armando, is when a person is in a position where the anxiety disorder may exist for them, what do they need to be looking for to understand, like, how to help themselves in those situations? Because when it's that problematic, like you said, it affects like every aspect of their life, and it almost saddens me to think about. So how do you help someone, or what would you encourage someone to do in a situation?
So I think the first thing, whenever you're having like anxiety, you're looking for control, because you feel out of control. Right? You feel like there's an elephant on your chest. Yes. You feel like your stomach is in knots. So you don't feel in control. Your heart is racing. So the first thing I would say is like, okay, try and get some control, like some deep grounding exercises, taking deep breaths. I don't even know what it's called. I do like the finger pressure thing while I breathe. And
I know what it is. I can't think of the word either. I've seen talk about.
I do that all the time. When I worked in schools and I'd have kids come in with like panic attacks or anxiety attacks, we would do things like that. So the first thing is getting grounded, feeling like, okay, what do I have control over? What's going on? And then, I'm solution focused. So I go back to, when were there times that I felt out of control and I was able to get control?
Right.
What were those things that I did?
Is anxiety more prominent now than in the past, or is it just that we're using the label more often?
I think we're aware of it now more and we're talking about it. But again, I think we're confusing what angst and anxiety is.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I think that's where, we triggers, right? How many times have you heard somebody say, oh, I'm triggered. You're triggering me.
And I'm going to tell you this, Armando, this may not be popular, but when you come and tell me that you're triggered, that means that's something going on in you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a me thing.
Mm-hmm.
right? If you're triggered by something I've said, that's something going on in you. If I'm triggered by something you said, that's actually something going on in me.
Right.
Makes sense? So like a trigger to me is actually a good thing because it goes, oh, there's something inside me got set off when they said or when they did or when they look at that as that. They just helped you. They helped you learn where you need to level up.
And so we've talked about this before, like kind of like a feelings alarm. I still talk to clients and kids about this. It's like your feelings alarm, like something happened in my having a response to that. Well, where is that response coming from? Let me get control over that. I am out of control, so I need that.
Got it.
And so particularly in divorce, this is triggering because it can feel incredibly out of your control. Everything is unpredictable. You don't know what your life is going to be. You had this vision of what your life was going to be with this person, this partner, and now you've decided it's not, or maybe they decided and didn't consult with you, but it's not that anymore.
Sold. Yeah.
And so then, and if you're in court proceedings, you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. How does that play out in divorce anxiety? Like angst or anxiety can go either way. So make sure we're clear with the listeners on which area we're in. But how does that play out in divorce use?
So I want to talk about anxiety specifically. Because, and you alluded to this, it's like it changes the way you think about the future, right? Like it becomes so scary, so fearful, so out of control that you're not able to focus. You're not able to work because all I can think about is that. It changes people. How many times have you heard, I know I've had clients, I've had parents come in and they're having like health issues because they're going through a divorce and they're so anxious.
Yeah, I've seen that too.
They're not sleeping, they're not eating.
Yeah, and then would they match on that as in depression, right?
Right.
But in reality, it could be that the angst is,
that you've moved over from angst to anxiety because now you have those physical that physical symptom of that. It's not
when's this gonna end? That's kind of the common theme of a person with.
Yeah, because again, you're fearful of the future. The future is scary, and so that's where you look into like clinical anxiety, where it is constant, it's impacting all the aspects of your life. And so that's where you get, anxiety disorders and other kind of clinical things. And that's where, look, medication is something specific for everybody. Like the research says, medication plus talk therapy are the best, better than one or the other. But I always tell clients, that's up to you. Go talk to I don't do medicated management. I don't do that. But if you want to talk about it, we can talk about it. We can figure it out, but that's very specific for somebody.
Well, I think one of the quotes I used to have, I actually wrote this on my board not that long ago, but it was an Einstein quote. It says, no problem can be solved with the same thinking that created it.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you think about that comment or that what Einstein's been quoted with is if no problem can be solved with the same thinking that created it, it means that problems are actually created by how we think.
Mm-hmm. And I think
so. You have to change the way you think about it, right? If you want to solve it.
Yes.
So does anxiety fall in a category like that? Like how we think about it is what I said earlier, like how we think about it is influential on what we're experiencing as well. I'm not saying people that are living in a state of anxiety want it, right? In the natural, like you said, the natural tendency for them is to find ways that they can control.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I can control, then I can manage outcomes. And if I can manage outcomes, I can predict future.
And that's what I want. I want the predictability. I want that consistency and predictability to trust what I'm thinking, to trust life.
Yeah. So what I'm wondering is if I could get people there faster, it's almost like rather than predicting the future outcome you want, what if you just knew, I know how to respond? Like regardless of what happens, I know that I can respond to what that's going to be helpful.
And I think that's where finding times where you felt out of control, felt, and you were able to do that, it re-empowers them. It grounds them. Exceptions, right? It grounds them into where they are. Again, that's grounding techniques are about pulling you out of up here and like what's going on right here. Exceptions are, okay, where were times that I was able to do that? How did I do that? How did I respond to that effectively?
I think one of the things I've done with my oldest daughter, who I think is in a state of indecisiveness because of angst. I wouldn't say she has anxiety, but I definitely would say she has angst for sure, probably more than the other kids. But one of the things that I probably should be better about asking her would be a question like, well, what were you thinking just right now? When you were thinking about this thing that is causing you this worry, tell me how you're thinking about it. What are you assuming is a possibility here? Like, 'cause I wonder if they talk it out, they might hear it and go, that's kind of dumb, isn't it? Or they might hear it and go, oh, wait a second. Because the more they talk it out, Don't you find that they kind of settle?
I don't know how many times I ask the questions like, well, what are you scared of? What are you afraid is
Just
going to
ask them.
happen? Yeah, is that because sometimes I don't know, like clearly, and they're like, I don't know, and I'm like, well, let's sit here and think about it. What is? I'm scared of that. Every bush has a snake in it. Okay, well, is that factually accurate?
And then you might say something like, so the last time you experienced that snake came out of the bush, what did you do?
How did you? Yeah, how did you?
Well, I found a way. I was able to. How'd you do that?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so it's almost like now I'm reassuring them, like, hey, you actually know how to respond in that situation.
What did that bush look like? Oh, so you know that this type of bush is the snake.
Is likely to have. Yep. Is likely to have a snake. Yeah.
So I'm back in control. I now know how to respond. I know how to react to those things.
There was in psychology when we were studying it, I remember this guy was, and I remember what it was called, but I think it was snakes. I think they'd use the example, let's say people were afraid of snakes, right? And so what they did is they would measure people. They would say, what we're going to do is they want to overcome this fear of snakes, right? So this anxiety they have about being around snakes. So what they would do is they would say something like, I want you to tell me on a scale of 1 to 10, how scared are you right now when I say the word snake? And they go, 5. We go, okay, got it. And so then they would show them a picture of a snake.
Yeah.
Right? And they say, okay, here's a picture of a snake.
Mm-hmm.
How scared are you on the scale of 1 to 10? They give you that number.
Mm-hmm.
As long as it wasn't like 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever, somewhere high, they would keep going with the next one. And so they would say something like a stuffed animal. So not a real snake yet, a stuffed animal. So they tell them, okay, here's a stuffed animal snake. How scared do you feel about it? Okay. Then they would actually take them where a snake was, but they had the snake in a cage, like locked away, and they let them stay a certain distance away, like be at the distance, which gives them control because they're far away enough. How scared are you, blah, blah, blah. And what they would do is they would eventually get to a point where they're holding the snake.
Yep.
And then they would go, okay, I'm not afraid of it.
Because you've been, it's exposure therapy is what that is.
That's exposure therapy?
That's exposure therapy. So we're exposing you to that thing that you're anxious about.
So then the question is, if that's I'm not saying that people that are anxious should just go do whatever they're anxious doing to expose themselves to it. What I'm saying is working your way toward, like if you're afraid to swim because you had a near drowning experience, so now you have anxiety around water, and you don't want that anxiety around water, like you want to overcome it, you're going to have to expose yourself to water, yes, at some level. And it may start with being in the vicinity of a pool. Then it may start with putting your feet in only. Then it may start with getting in with shallow. Then it may start getting in there with a life vest. Then it may start with, you kind of continue to. So are you saying that if someone today never met us, Armando, and wanted to deal with anxiety in their life, the more exposure you have to the thing that you're avoiding, the more you're going to learn how to be in control?
I think if you do it in a way that you feel comfortable and safe, yes. And there are ways to do that, especially if you're, and I think we
spend more time avoiding anxiety, don't we?
We do, because it's because you feel out of control. That's what makes it so much different than angst, is because you literally feel out of control about it. So to your point about water, I actually have like water fear. I actually have water phobia, like swimming.
Really?
Yep.
New?
Yeah. No, yeah.
So water, you.
No, let's see. That doesn't bother me. Right? I just spent, I don't know how many days in a pool. Like that's. But part of that is learning to like, okay, let me slowly get in. Let me get accustomed. Hey, keep people away from me for a second. Let me like breathe. Okay, I'm safe. And we're good. Right? It is very much that like that exposure over time. And when we talk about divorce, it can feel like out of control. I think.
Oh, sure, because they don't know the outcome. And neither side seems to be able to project outcome. They know what they wanted the outcome to look like. And they might feel a little bit more, it's going to kind of lean more toward my way than the other. But you're right. In the end, they really don't know.
And I think this is not to like push people one way or the other, but I think particularly when you go to trial, you have a hearing, that's what adds more anxiety versus if you can't come up with an agreement or a settlement.
Exactly.
You're in more control and there's less anxiety about that because I actually have a piece in that. I said something. You leave it up to a nice person in a robe, they're going to decide however they decide.
They're gonna make a decision about a child they may have never met.
About a family they don't know.
Wow.
And so that gives, like, thinking about that gives me a little bit of angst. If I was...
You're about to dictate the future of my child that you have never met because I can't agree with. Yeah. Nice. Wow.
And you have...
I see that.
Yeah. And that's where I think But again, I'm kind of biased. I think collaboration and conversation is probably key to a lot of stuff. So the more you can do that.
Think about that in life everywhere. When you buy a home, or if you negotiate the contract on an apartment, if you rent something, if you buy a vehicle, aren't you constantly collaborating with people all the time to either get the best deal or you're always in it. Chris Voss says you're always in a negotiation. You're constantly in a state of negotiating. And no is not the end of a negotiation, it's the beginning of one.
And I think people are scared. I think people have anxiety about hearing no or saying no.
Yes, and I think that's why you start with no worrying questions. To give people permission to say
no.
No. Would you be against this? Are you opposed? It's such a phenomenal question because it allows you to maintain the autonomy of getting to say the thing that makes you comfortable, which is no.
So I think that goes really well into like talking about anxiety as it relates to kids. Because if I'm a co-parent and I have anxiety or I don't get along with that other co-parent, and I get past my own anxiety and I learn how to have a collaborative conversation or talk to them about things, then my anxiety goes down. What do you think that does to the kid?
Oh yeah, it has the same effect, I'm sure.
Their anxiety goes down. I cannot tell you how many times I have kids who come into my office and I ask them like, hey, both your parents are out in the waiting room. What do you think about that? They're like, it makes me nervous. Oh, tell me, because I don't know. They're going to start fighting. They don't like to be in the same room. And I was like, okay. I was like, well, you were sitting right in the middle. What was that like? He's like, oh, it was awful, right? Like, and their eyes get big and and you can see the anxiety in them that these parents are creating. But I've also
just by their presence.
Just by their presence. And I've also had the reverse, which is not a lot, but it is neat, where I've had the bio mom and the bio dad there, and they come into the office with the kid talking, and I'm like, oh, how was that with both your parents? He's like, that's fine. Like, they get along. I'm like, oh, that's weird. That's weird to me, but like, no anxiety whatsoever. He's super chill about stuff. Like, that is not the reason why they're here.
It's almost as if parents would be more cognizant that a lot of times, whether they know it consciously or subconsciously, they're projecting their own things into the children. The children are actually navigating their stuff. So a lot of times your kids might do or say things that align with you, not because it's true to them, but because they know you need it.
Or they're responding to that person's anxiety, right?
Correct. To fill the hole, the void.
I mean, and we see that all the time, all the emotions, like we feed off of that with people. So anxiety is no different than any other emotion, right? Like
100%.
You know,
I told someone just yesterday, Armando, I said, a lot of us seek out external solutions.
You said that to me.
When did I say that to you?
We were trying to leave. I was trying to leave and it was yesterday.
Darn it.
It's okay, but it's still good. It was still good.
What you just said that was, I was trying to leave. And you told me, so it's like, oh, before you go, let me tell you this thing I said to someone today.
That's because, listeners, what you don't know is we do this all the time, whether the camera's on or not, and we will sit here and have these conversations, whether it's in front of a podcast, at lunch, after work, before work,
at lunch, in a conference room, at a meeting. Yeah.
We have these conversations all the time. So we decided why not record them.
Why not record it? We already have a conversation anyway.
Sorry, to your point, I apologize.
No, I'm just saying, like, that's the thing is we seek out external solutions. And so the thing I would tell people is anxiety is coming from an internal place, right? In how you feel or think about things. But you're seeking external solutions, like using avoidance and different coping mechanisms to deal with the thing that you try to get rid of, instead of learning to embrace that it's there and understanding why it exists in the first place. Which
is hard to do for a parent when you're struggling with stuff. And it's incredibly hard for a child who we're talking about how it completely changes predictability, consistency for this child. Now I have 2 homes. I have 2 beds. What is that going to look like? And so that's where creating that consistency, that's where creating some of the similar things, giving them some sense of normalcy and control, reduces their anxiety. And anxiety, it doesn't just look like I'm nervous, I don't want to go to dad's or mom's house. It could also look like every time I go to a parent's house, I have stomach issues, right? I spend all day in the bathroom.
Yeah, that's a good one, right? Because it's the avoidant behavior.
Mm-hmm. And also they're having physical symptoms of anxiety. Like that will cause that.
Psychosomatic because we'll use the comb, right? Yep, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And so, or irritability. Well, why are you so grumpy every time? Transitions. How many times in transitions do kids come back and the parents report that they're irritable or it takes a minute? Their anxiety of, now I'm shifting, what is that going to look like?
Oh, and they're tired. I get more kids that tell me the older they get, the more the transition, they just get tired of living out of a backpack, and they're just tired. They're just worn down. They're like, I'm done doing this. Like, I spend a night everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I have a home, right? And they don't say it that way because of what they'll do by default is they'll pick one, even if they spend more time there, whatever, and they'll call that home.
Mm-hmm.
Then the other parent feels offended by the fact that they don't call their home home,
Mm-hmm.
And so then they put that pressure on the kid.
But what does that speak to the kid in terms of, I'm fearful of the future, right?
Yes.
Where am I going to be? Who am I going to be with? So you're instilling that anxiety. So again, the more you can model behavior that like, oh, it's fine, we're okay, there's consistency, there's stability, that's going to reduce any kind of anxiety.
This is the thing about life, man. Even when it's not okay, it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even when you're in the worst moment of your life and it's not okay, it always ends up okay. I mean, you can literally, this is my grandpa telling me this, depending on how you want to compare yourself, you can find people that have it worse than you, people that have it better than you. You're probably always in the middle. So when you're sitting here worried about a future, number one, that may not exist because you only live in the present anyway, the future is built in your mind. And you think by over-preparing yourself for this potential horrible outcome in the future, it's going to prepare you somehow to deal with it when it comes, that it may never come.
Right.
I literally looked up the stat on that. Did you know that 95%, I think some people say 90, some people say 95, but let's just say between 90 and 95% of the thing you worry about happening never actually happens?
That's interesting.
Yeah. The majority of the times that they do happen, some of it's self-fulfilling.
Well, I mean, if I'm worried that I'm going to have a panic attack or an anxiety attack, what am I doing? I'm working myself up. And then what happens? I have one.
So I know we're going to get close on time. I'm going to finish this. I was working with a couple, okay, and they were together. They weren't married. They were just dating, but they were having issues in their relationship. The guy was so fearful that his ex was cheating on him that he would say, I want to see your phone. He was just like, the control, right?
Mm-hmm.
He wanted that control to know where she was going, why she didn't answer her phone, why she turned her location off, blah, blah, blah. The girl did cheat on him. So what does he say to her? He says, see, I knew you're cheating on me. What she said is to him, she said, you pushed me so far into the idea that I was cheating that I was at a point where it's like, what difference does it make at this point? And not that it was a good reason for her to cheat in the first place, but it's like, I looked at the guy, it's like, you pushed her so far to the brink, right? That she was just like, well, then why? The anxiety won.
Yeah. Well, it's sometimes the control or that desire, that cure is worse. It causes just as much problem.
Yeah.
And so that's where, again, it's about balance with anxiety. It is not a bad emotion. It's like, what is it trying to highlight that is important? Anxiety is supposed to highlight something that's important or that's going on to keep us alive or keep us aware. Does not mean it should like consume everything we're thinking about.
I just had a thought. I think I know what that control piece is like. Back in the day when they made cars, I think they take them now when you drive a car, the parking brake automatically turns off if you don't take it off.
Yes.
They have buttons. But back in the day when I had my first car and I had the pull-up parking brake, I drove with the parking brake up. Right, I was driving, the parking brake was on, and I was like, my car's not, it's not good. The car's not, it's like sluggish, it's not moving for a while. I'm like, what's wrong with my car? I thought it was breaking down. I realized my parking brake was on. And as soon as I let go of the control of the parking brake, when I let it go, what happened?
You're able to go?
We're moving.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if that's, you want control because you want predictability. But you can't move because you try to control so much that there's no way to move. You've created no space for movement, right? Because you've collapsed it in. So it's got to move only in the spot. So now it can't move.
But I think that's so this is what I would say, listeners, in terms of if you struggle with anxiety or you see that your children struggle with anxiety, the question is, well, what's in your sphere of control? What can you actually control? Yeah. Be focused on that and be like, okay, this is all I can control. Can I control how my other co-parent is going to respond and react? No.
Right. And so then you actually learn how to better respond, which is why I created a course called Countering Alienation. You know the course.
I do know the course.
I created a course called Countering Alienation, which is its design is how to respond, not how to control, not even how to define, but to respond. Because I think when you become a better responder, you can actually become a better predictor of outcome.
Which then you're not fearful of the future, so your anxiety decreases. And if you're worried about your children, if your anxiety decreases, theirs will too.
Absolutely. And those of you listening, if you are interested in that course, Countering Alienation, it is on our website at brighterpossibilities.fc.com. Under courses, you'll see 2. One is free, talks about the different Asians, triangulation, purification, and alienation. And then that was a free course you're welcome to have. You can find it on YouTube as well. But the other course is a paid-for course for Countering Alienation, and you get a workbook. And I mean, they get so much stuff. Like, it's ridiculous how much work went into that. And that's years and years. And it's funny because as you were talking through this, I'm thinking that's exactly why I created this, is to help counter all those fears that people develop around it. So that's what it's important. Is there anything else you want to say to the listener before we finish?
I mean, I think that's it. Again, I think, if you struggle with anxiety, if you struggle, like, really take a step back and be like, okay, what do I have control over? What can I control? And don't be scared of the anxiety. It's not it's not bad on its own. We don't have to use it as a bad word, and please don't use it for everything either. Again, angst and anxiety are different.
Please don't use it for everything either. I'll say this, and thank you for saying that. My encouragement to you listeners with anxiety is see what it's trying to teach you and learn to embrace it. And the more you embrace it, the more you will be in control of its experience. You can turn anxiety back into angst. And I do believe that's by embracing what it's trying to tell you. And remember, like the quote says, is no problem can be solved with the same thinking that created it, which is that when you have to change how you look at what the problem is, if you want to change how you actually resolve the issue in the first place. It's really crazy to think that a lot of problems that we have in our life are actually how we think about them. We create most of our problems by how we think about the problem. So you have to embrace the issue because it's trying to tell you something. Feelings and emotions are messengers, and they're just trying to tell you something, right? They're trying to help you find a solution. They're not there to hurt you. They're there to actually help you. Fear is not a bad thing. I agree. I want to be able to run away from the saber-toothed tiger is chasing me, or kill it, right? Fight or flight. That's where they came from. And people forget that we're always in a state of survival. And I heard someone say the other day, and it wasn't me that said, I wish I would have, but someone said that the reason that people reject us sometimes, like if you feel like people reject you, it's because you threaten their survival.
There's something about you
there's something that's threatening about you to their survival or their hope or their vision or their outcome. And so I have learned that when a person feels that way, I have to depersonalize and realize that's not mine. I don't own that. But that is something that is causing angst within you. Make sense?
Yeah, makes total sense.
Yeah. So anyway, man, I could go on and on about it. This is a great topic, man. Is there anything else, Armando, that I missed?
I mean, I think that's there's still so much, but again, I encourage our listeners to, if you really do struggle, reach out for
Absolutely.
You get your own help. We're here.
We want to help you, and trust me, we're human too. We have to get our own. That's why we talk so much about things. We want to, because we help ourselves through that as we talk through it. But I will say, if you love what you're hearing and you love this stuff, please rate and review as quick as you can. It doesn't take too long to do that, and it means so much to us and our other listeners. We want to get this in front of as many people as possible so that they can benefit from the information that we're sharing with them. I want to thank you so much. Thank you for being here and keep moving forward.